Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you something. The greatest fight you will ever face in your life ain't out there in the streets. It's not at your job, and it's not with your family. The greatest battle is the one that happens right here in your mind. Let me tell y'all something real. Most people think the hardest part of life is dealing with other folks. Bosses, bills, relationships, responsibilities. But let me put you up on something. The biggest, most dangerous, most relentless enemy you're gonna ever face in this life is your own mind. See, your mind ain't a playground. It ain't some peaceful little place where everything is flowers and butterflies. No, your mind is a battlefield. Every single day, there's a war going on in your head between what you believe and what you fear, between who you really are and who you were told you couldn't be. You hear me? This ain't light work. This is a fight. And the thing about this battle, it don't care how much money you got, how famous you are, how many followers you have, or how many degrees are on your wall. If you ain't in control of what's happening in your head, you're already losing. Because the mind don't play fair. One bad thought can spiral into a whole storm. One moment of doubt and the next thing you know, you're talking yourself out of your destiny. That's how slick it is. You ever had one of those days where everything looked fine, but something in your spirit just didn't feel right? Like the sun is shining, but your heart heavy. That's not your circumstances. That's your thoughts. That's that quiet little war that most people don't even know they're fighting. And if you don't learn to recognize it, you'll start thinking it's just life being hard. Nah, it's your mind trying to tell you who's in control. Now let me be real with you. I've had times, low times, when I didn't know how I was gonna make it. Didn't know where the next meal was coming from. Sleeping in my car, crying in the dark, asking God why me. And let me tell you what almost broke me. It wasn't the situation. It was the thoughts. It was the whisper saying, you ain't good enough. You ain't never gonna make it. You're wasting your time. That's the real enemy, that voice, that constant attack from the inside. But you want to know what changed everything? I stopped letting my mind run wild. I started treating it like what it is, a war zone. And just like you wouldn't go into battle without a weapon, I stopped walking into my day without a plan. I started waking up, looking in the mirror and telling myself, you got this. You were built for this. God didn't bring you this far to leave you. See, you gotta fight back. You gotta push back against those thoughts. You can't let fear set up camp in your mind and pay no rent. Evict it. You hear me? Doubt don't belong in your future. Regret ain't part of your story no more. And just because a thought shows up, don't mean you gotta invite it to stay. Let me break this down even further. The battlefield of the mind is sneaky. It'll show up when things are going well. You get a promotion and that voice creeps in like, you sure you can handle this? You start a new business and here come the thoughts. What if you fail? What if they laugh at you? It waits. It studies you. It knows your insecurities better than anyone else. But here's the thing. You know you better than that voice. You know how far you've come. You know what you've survived. And if you don't, then you better start reminding yourself. See, one of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking they supposed to be happy all the time. Like every day gonna feel amazing. That's not real. Some days the only thing you gonna have is grit. And on those days, your mind is gonna try and tell you this ain't worth it. And you gotta talk back. You gotta say, no, I'm worth it. My dreams are worth it. My peace is worth it. Because let me tell you what happens if you don't fight. You get stuck. You live your whole life reacting instead of creating. You let other people's opinions become your blueprint. You stop growing. You stop dreaming. You settle, and baby, life ain't never been about settling. You were not made to survive. You were made to thrive. And I know somebody listening to this thinking, man, that's easy to say. No, it ain't easy. It's hard, but it's possible. You don't have to fix everything overnight, but you gotta start with what's going on up here. The minute you start taking control of your thoughts, everything else starts to shift. Your energy, your confidence, your decisions, they all follow your mindset. You want a better life? Start thinking better thoughts. You want peace? Stop replaying pain. You want purpose? Get your mind aligned with where you're going. not where you've been. It ain't always gonna be pretty. You gonna have to cry some nights. You gonna have to be your own cheerleader sometimes. You gonna feel like giving up. But don't let the battlefield of your mind cost you the life you were meant to live. Because here's the truth. Victory don't start on the outside. It starts up here. And when you win this battle, everything else falls into place. Let me tell you what I learned a long time ago. Something that changed how I move, how I live, how I speak. Fear and faith, they don't live in the same house. One shows up, the other's gotta leave. That's just how it works. See, a lot of y'all are trying to walk through life holding hands with both fear and faith. Like you can make them play nice. But baby, they ain't friends. They're enemies. One builds you up, the other tears you down. One pushes you forward, the other holds you back. And the moment you understand that, the way you deal with your mind, your choices, your future, it all shifts. Now listen, fear is loud. Fear got a big old mouth. It'll talk you out of your dreams before you even get started. Fear shows up first thing in the morning, whispering all the ways you gon' fail today. Fear reminds you of every mistake you ever made. Every person who walked away, every time you tried and it didn't work. And if you ain't careful, fear will have you living a life that ain't even yours. It'll have you sitting on the sideline, watching everybody else chase their calling, while you talk yourself into being realistic. But you gotta ask yourself, what has fear ever done for you? Has it ever paid your bills? Has it ever opened a door? Has it ever introduced you to peace? Fear is a thief. It steals time, steals purpose, steals your voice. Fear got one job, to stop you from stepping into what's already waiting for you. And it does that by convincing you that the worst will happen if you try. But now let's talk about faith. Faith ain't loud. Faith don't shout. It whispers. Faith don't demand, it invites. Faith says, I know you can't see how this gonna work, but walk anyway. Faith don't wait for proof. Faith moves first. And when you start moving with faith, even a little bit of it can change your whole direction. Now don't get it twisted. Faith is not the absence of fear. Faith is when you move in spite of fear. Faith is when you feel that fear creeping up your spine, and you say, I hear you, but I'm not staying here. Faith is when you choose to believe that God's plan is still working, even when nothing around you looks like it. That's real faith. But here's the problem. Most folks don't know which one they feed in. Fear and faith both come with evidence. If you feed your fear, you'll start noticing everything that could go wrong. You'll see obstacles, failure, rejection. But if you feed your faith, you'll start seeing opportunities. You'll see open doors. You'll see grace. It's all about where your attention goes. And let me tell you something. Where your attention goes, your energy follows. So if all you focus on is the fear, don't be surprised when your life starts looking like a storm. But if you start tuning into faith, if you start speaking it, walking it, believing it, that's when things start breaking loose. I've been in situations where I didn't have a plan, didn't have resources, didn't have connections, just had faith. And I'll tell you what, I got further on faith than I ever did with fear. Fear had me stuck. Fear had me second-guessing myself, shrinking myself, playing small when I was meant to stand tall. But faith had me out here making moves I couldn't explain. Faith had me showing up in rooms I wasn't supposed to be in. But there I was. Some of y'all are waiting on the right moment, waiting until you feel ready. Let me go ahead and help you out. You might not ever feel ready, but faith don't need you to feel ready. Faith just needs you to decide. To decide you're not gonna let fear win today. To decide that your gift is more important than your doubt. To decide that even if you stumble, at least you're moving forward. And let me be real with you. Faith will stretch you. Oh yeah, it'll pull you into places where you gotta depend on something bigger than yourself. It'll require discipline, obedience, consistency. But let me tell you something else. Faith rewards. Faith opens up possibilities that fear could never touch. Faith turns closed doors into open ones. Faith introduces you to the version of yourself you ain't even met yet. So if you find yourself standing in between fear and faith, and you don't know which way to go, pick faith. Every time. I don't care how scared you are. I don't care how many times you failed. I don't care who walked out on you, who doubted you, who said you wouldn't make it. You pick faith, because faith has never lied to you. Fear has. Fear told you you're not worthy. Fear told you you're too late. Fear told you it's too hard. But faith says you got exactly what it takes. Faith says you were chosen for this. And here's the cold truth. You can't carry fear and expect to walk into freedom. You can't stay loyal to your fears and still expect to see growth. At some point, you gotta choose which one gets to lead your life. You gotta decide who you're gonna trust more. The voice of fear or the voice of God, because one is lying and one is leading. And the direction of your life is tied to which one you believe. So today, right now, make the decision. Even if your knees are shaking, even if your heart is racing, even if everything around you is saying play it safe, make the choice to step out anyway. That's how change happens. That's how purpose is found. That's how legacies are built. You don't need perfect conditions. You need faith, just a little bit. That's enough to get you started. And once you start moving with faith, doors gonna open, people gonna show up, favor gonna find you. But it starts with choosing to stop giving fear a seat at your table. Because fear and faith can't live in the same house. Only one gets to stay. Let me tell you something that most folks don't realize. Something that took me years to really get. You can't wait on the world to cheer for you. You can't sit around hoping somebody's going to show up and tell you how amazing you are, how smart you are, how talented you are. Nah, you got to learn how to speak life over yourself. See, the world we live in now is loud. Everybody got an opinion. Social media got people thinking they experts on your life. You post one little thing and here come the critics. You can't do that. That's not good enough. Who do you think you are? And if you ain't strong in your mind, if you haven't trained yourself to block out that noise and speak power into your own life, you're gonna end up living for their approval and dying from their rejection. You gotta flip the script. Every morning you wake up, there's a battle waiting on you. And before the day even gets started, your own thoughts start talking. That voice in your head starts running its mouth. You ain't ready, you ain't qualified, you too late. Now you can't stop the voice from showing up, but you can decide what you gonna say back. You can't let that voice speak louder than the truth you know deep down inside. That's why I start my day by speaking over me. Before I get out of bed, before I check my phone, before I let anybody else have access to me, I talk to myself. You are chosen. You are equipped. You are favored. You are focused. You are more than enough. Not because I feel that way every day, but because I need to remind myself. Faith comes by hearing, and sometimes the most powerful thing you can hear is your own voice declaring what God already said about you. Look, life is hard. Let's be real. People will doubt you, criticize you, walk away from you. Circumstances will shake you, but you can't depend on external validation to keep you going. That's too unstable. You need something internal, something unshakable. You gotta become your own hype man, your own encourager. Because truth be told, if you're waiting for somebody else to lift you up every time you feel low, you're gonna be stuck on the ground a long time. You ever see how people light up when somebody compliments them? It's beautiful. But you know what's even more powerful? When a person learns to light themselves up, when they don't need applause to walk confidently, when they don't need likes to know their value, when they don't need someone clapping for them to know they're walking in purpose. That's what speaking life over yourself does. It builds internal strength. It creates a mindset where you're no longer controlled by the opinions of others. Because let's face it, people are fickle. One day they love you, the next they don't. You can't let your identity be tossed around by that. You gotta anchor it. And that anchor is built in the words you say about yourself, to yourself. Some of y'all been letting the voice of doubt speak over you for too long. You've rehearsed failure so much in your head that it's become your default. You hear your name and attach it to every mistake you've made. I'm just not good at that. That's just how I am. I've never been lucky. Let me stop you right there. None of that is truth. That's programming. That's fear dressing itself up as reality. And if you want to shift your life, you got to start with your language. Change your words, change your world. Instead of saying, I can't do this, say, I'm learning how to do this. Instead of saying, I always mess up, say, I'm growing every day. Start catching yourself in the act of tearing yourself down and replace it with something that builds you up. Not empty flattery, not fake positivity. I'm talking about truth. You've been through some things. You've survived storms other folks didn't even know you were in. You pushed through seasons where quitting would have been easier, but you kept going. So speak that, and don't wait until everything's perfect to do it. You speak life when you're broke. You speak life when you're tired. You speak life when you don't know how it's going to work out. That's when it matters the most. Anybody can be positive when things are smooth, but when you're in the valley, when it feels like nothing's moving, when the doors are shut and the pressure is heavy, that's when you open your mouth and say, I still believe something good is coming. I still believe there's more in me. I still believe I was created for a reason. You know why that's so powerful? Because the tongue is creative. What you say today shapes what you experience tomorrow. And too many people are cursing their future with careless words, talking like it's over when God hasn't even started, saying I'll never be when they haven't even tried. That ain't humility. That's defeat. That's giving fear the mic when faith should be speaking. And I know what some of y'all thinking. It feels weird to talk to myself like that. Well, let me ask you this. Does it feel weird to tear yourself down all day long? Because you've been doing that and look where it's gotten you. So how about trying something different? How about you make it a habit to lift yourself up? I ain't saying you gotta stand in the mirror screaming affirmations like a superhero. But start somewhere. A whisper is enough. A sentence is enough. A decision is enough. You have the power to flip the script in your life. Not by waiting for someone to speak greatness into you, but by becoming that voice for yourself. That's where real confidence comes from. Not from the outside, but from the inside. From the daily decision to show up, speak truth, and stay rooted in what you know is possible. Because at the end of the day, if you don't speak life over yourself, you leave room for the world to speak death. And that ain't the kind of story you were born to live. Now let me talk to you about something real personal. Something that'll test you harder than just about anything else. Life comes with pain, no way around it. You can have dreams, you can have goals, you can have talent. But one thing that's gonna meet you no matter what, pain, heartbreak, disappointment, failure, betrayal, yeah, that stuff's real. And the truth is, you can't live life trying to dodge it. You gotta learn how to grow through it. See, we live in a world where everybody's trying to skip the struggle. Folks want shortcuts. People want the blessing without the burden. But let me tell you, growth don't come when everything's comfortable. Growth shows up in the middle of the storm. Growth happens when the lights go off and the applause stops and you're sitting there with your thoughts trying to figure out if you're strong enough to get back up one more time. Now I ain't saying pain is good. No one likes it, but it's necessary. Pain is a teacher. It don't whisper, it don't come with soft words. It teaches with pressure, with loss, with silence. And if you listen close, if you don't run from it, that pain will start shaping you. It'll teach you who you are when the plan falls apart. It'll teach you what you're made of when everything you depended on disappears. Most people think pain is a punishment. It's not. It's preparation. It's development. That pain you feel when something breaks, it's there to make room for something new. You just gotta stop asking why and start asking, what's this trying to teach me? That shift in mindset, that right there is how you start winning the battle of the mind. I've been through some things that almost broke me. Moments where I thought, man, this is it. I can't come back from it. And you know what pulled me through? Not comfort, not ease, pain. The same thing that tried to crush me ended up being the very thing that elevated me. It gave me grit. It gave me resilience. It gave me empathy. It gave me a deeper relationship with God. And that kind of growth don't come in the sunshine. It comes in the dark. You don't build muscle lifting feathers. You build it when you're straining, when it burns, when it feels like you can't do one more rep. That's how it works. And life is no different. You get stronger by walking through the hard stuff. Not around it, not under it, through it. But here's what most folks do. They feel pain and they freeze, or they retreat, or worse, they numb. They start distracting themselves with whatever they can find. TV, relationships, scrolling, spending, just to avoid feeling what they need to feel. And you know what happens? They stay stuck. The pain don't go away, it just gets buried. And buried pain grows root. It'll show up in your attitude, your decisions, your relationships. It'll keep whispering. You're not enough until you finally face it and say, no, I'm more than this. Pain has purpose. That betrayal, it taught you how to trust your instincts. That failure exposed the cracks so you could rebuild stronger. That loss, it taught you to cherish the people still in your life. But you only get the lesson if you lean in instead of running. Let me be real with you. Growing through pain ain't pretty. There's gonna be nights when you cry yourself to sleep, days when you feel numb, moments where your faith feels like it's hanging by a thread. And in those times, you're gonna be tempted to give up, to throw in the towel, to settle. Don't do it. You are being refined, not destroyed. You are being pruned, not punished. Think about gold. It don't shine until it's put in fire. Diamonds, they start out as coal, pressed and crushed until they become something valuable. So why do we think we should come out shining without going through anything? Stop wishing away your process. That process is necessary. It's building the version of you that your purpose needs. It's preparing the character to carry the calling. One of the strongest things you can say when you're in pain is, "This will not break me." Not because you ain't hurting, but because you understand something deeper is happening. You're learning. You're transforming. You're becoming someone who doesn't just survive the storm, but grows because of it. Let me say something to the folks who feel like their pain is their identity. You're not your pain. You're not what happened to you. You're not the mistake, the trauma, the loss. You are the person who walked through that fire and came out with wisdom. Don't wear your pain like a name tag. Use it as a stepping stone. Use it as fuel. And if you're in the middle of it right now, if you're going through something heavy, know this: you ain't alone. Everybody you admire, everybody who's walking in purpose, they've been through something. Ain't nobody gets through life untouched. But the ones who win, they're the ones who didn't let the pain define them. They let it shape them. So how do you grow through pain? You show up, you breathe, you talk to God, you remind yourself daily, this hurts, but it won't last forever. You cry if you need to, but don't stop moving. You speak life over yourself. You focus on what's next. You keep your eyes on purpose, not just problems. Because one day you'll look back at this season, the one that almost took you out, and you'll realize it built you. It made you. It gave you strength you never knew you had. That's the gift inside the pain. That's the growth. And that's why you don't run from it. You grow through it and you come out better than you were before. Let me tell you something that most people don't talk about enough. We live in a world that's constantly trying to pull your attention in 1,000 different directions. You wake up and before your feet even hit the floor, your phone's already lighting up with text, news, social media, and a whole lot of noise that ain't got nothing to do with your purpose. And if you're not careful, you'll spend your whole life reacting instead of intentionally deciding where your mind should go. You gotta learn how to guard your thoughts like your life depends on it, because it does. Now listen, your mind is like a garden. Whatever you let in, that's what's gonna grow. If you're constantly allowing negativity, gossip, doubt, fear, and comparison into your headspace, don't be surprised when your confidence starts withering and your dreams start shrinking. But if you protect that space, if you're intentional about what you allow to take root, you start to see the kind of growth that lines up with where you're trying to go in life. People think guarding your mind means being paranoid. It don't. It means being wise. It means understanding that not every voice deserves your attention. Not every thought needs to be entertained. Not every opinion should be internalized. Just because somebody says something about you, don't make it true. Just because a thought comes to your mind, don't mean it gets to stay there. You ever sit around and suddenly feel heavy for no reason? You start doubting yourself, feeling anxious, worried about things that haven't even happened yet. That ain't random. That's the result of unguarded thoughts. You've been letting everything and everybody occupy mental space rent-free. And some of that stuff is toxic. You gotta start asking yourself, does this serve my peace? Does this align with the vision I got for my life? Is this thought helping me grow, or is it tearing me down? If the answer is no, then you gotta evict it. And let me tell you something else. Guarding your thoughts also means being mindful of who you spend time with. Because some folks, they don't just bring drama, they plan it. You ever talk to someone and walk away feeling worse than before? That's not by accident. People carry energy. They carry beliefs. And if you keep surrounding yourself with folks who think small, dream small, and speak small, it's only a matter of time before that stuff seeps into your thinking. You'll start shrinking your vision just to match their comfort zone. And that's not what you were built for. You need people around you who speak life, who challenge you to rise higher, who remind you of who you are when you start forgetting. Because you're not always going to feel strong. You're not always going to wake up feeling like a champion. And on those days, it matters who's in your corner. It matters who's in your ear. So protect that space. You don't owe everybody access to your mind. Some folks need boundaries, and that's not being mean, it's being responsible with your peace. Now here's where it gets real. Some of the most dangerous thoughts ain't coming from outside. They're coming from inside. That inner critic. That voice that keeps bringing up every failure, every rejection, every mistake. And if you don't challenge that voice, if you just let it talk unchecked, it will rob you of everything you're trying to build. That's why I say you gotta get in the habit of talking back to your thoughts. When that voice says you ain't good enough, you answer with, I've got everything I need to win. When it says, what if you fail? You say, what if I fly? You can't be passive with your mind. You gotta fight for your focus. You gotta fight for your peace. And I ain't saying it's easy. I ain't saying you can just flip a switch and all the negative thoughts disappear. But you can train your mind. You can train it like a muscle. And the way you train it is through repetition, through discipline, through feeding it the right things daily. That means what you read matters. What you watch matters. What you listen to matters. I don't start my day with bad news. I start it with gratitude. I start it with faith. I start it with something that reminds me who I am and what I'm here for. You gotta set the tone for your day before the world tries to set it for you. That's what guarding your mind looks like. It's not just about avoiding the bad stuff. It's about replacing it with something better. You gotta choose thoughts that give you power, that keep you anchored, that keep you dreaming big even when your circumstances look small. Sometimes guarding your mind also means giving yourself permission to disconnect, to take a break from the noise, to unplug from everything and just sit in silence, reflect, pray, breathe, recenter. We spend so much time chasing more that we forget to protect what we already have. And peace of mind? That's worth protecting. Let me ask you something. If your mind was a home, who or what would you let walk through the front door? Would you let fear come in and redecorate your living room? Would you give anxiety the guest bedroom? Would you let self-doubt cook up lies in your kitchen? Nah, you would. So why let those things live in your mental space? You gotta start seeing your mind as sacred. Not everybody gets a key. Not every thought deserves a seat at the table. You're the gatekeeper. You decide what stays. You decide what goes. And the more you train yourself to be intentional about that, the more clarity you'll have, the more strength you'll have, and the more peace you'll walk in even when life is chaotic. Because at the end of the day, you can't control everything that happens around you, but you can control what happens within you. And when you master that, when you learn to guard your thoughts, you start winning battles the world never even sees. That's how you protect your power. Let me tell you something about faith. Real faith. It ain't just something you pull out when everything's going smooth. Faith shows up when everything's going wrong. When you've done everything you can do, when you've worked, pushed, prayed, cried, and still don't see the result. That's when faith kicks in. That's when you gotta believe beyond what you can see. And if you're ever gonna win the battle of the mind, you're gonna have to anchor yourself in faith, like your life depends on it. Because it does. See, your mind is gonna lie to you sometime. It's gonna say it's over. You've missed your shot. You'll never get out of this. And those lies, they feel real when you're tired, when you're disappointed, when you've been let down more times than you can count. But that's when you gotta dig in and remind yourself, this ain't the end. I may not see the way, but I know there's one. I may not feel strong, but I know I've got strength in me. That's faith. It don't rely on feelings. It don't need proof in advance. Faith is the courage to take one more step when every voice in your head is telling you to quit. Let me be real with you. Faith don't always feel good. It don't always look powerful. Sometimes faith looks like showing up to the job you hate while believing you're destined for more. Sometimes it's starting that business with just a little idea and a lot of hope. Sometimes it's walking away from something that's comfortable because deep down you know it's not aligned with your purpose. That's not easy. But faith will have you walking into unfamiliar territory with confidence. Not because you know what's next, but because you trust the one who does. You know what messes a lot of folks up? They think faith is a feeling. But let me tell you, some of the most powerful moments of faith I've ever had came when I was scared out of my mind. Faith is not the absence of fear, it's moving anyway. It's pushing forward with shaky hands and a nervous heart. You can cry while you walk. You can doubt while you move. But you move. That's faith. And here's what you need to understand. Your faith needs to be louder than your fear. Every single time, fear will scream. It'll paint the worst case scenario. It'll pull up your past. It'll remind you of every failure, every rejection, every time you fell short. But your faith has got to be the voice that says, even now I still believe. Even after all that, I'm not done. Even though I don't have all the answers, I'm still showing up. You got to train your mind to trust when it doesn't make sense. That's hard, I know, but it's necessary because life's going to test you. There's going to be seasons where the door don't open, when the money runs out, when the people you counted on disappear. And it's in those moments that your faith has to stand tall. That belief in something bigger, that belief that your life has purpose, that belief that what's in you is greater than what's around you. That's what keeps you going. Now I need to say this. Faith ain't passive. It's not just sitting back and hoping things fall into your lap. Faith takes work. Faith says, I'm going to prepare like the opportunity is already on the way. I'm going to show up like I already got the promotion. I'm going to practice like the stage is already mine. Faith is active. It's daily. It's choosing to believe over and over, even when you've been let down. And here's what's crazy. When you really walk in faith, your circumstances might not change right away, but you will. Your peace will grow. Your strength will deepen. Your confidence will shift. And then eventually your reality starts catching up to what you've been believing for. I've seen folks miss out on their breakthrough because they gave up too early. They stopped believing right before the blessing. They said this ain't working and walked away, not knowing that one more prayer, one more day, one more act of faith could have shifted everything. That's why I always say don't give up in the dark what you believed in the light. If it was true then, it's still true now. Just because it got hard don't mean it's not meant for you. You ever plant something and expect it to grow overnight? No, you plant it, water it, and sometimes it looks like nothing's happening. But beneath the soil, roots are taking hold. The foundation is being built. That's faith. Trusting that just because you can't see the progress doesn't mean progress ain't happening. Sometimes the most important part of your growth is the part no one else sees. So I'm telling you right now, don't be moved by what you see. Be moved by what you believe. Speak life over your future. Declare that you're built for more. Surround yourself with people who feed your faith and not your fear. Read things that lift your spirit. Listen to things that remind you of who you are. Protect your hope. Guard your vision. Because when you believe, really believe, you change the atmosphere around you. You become a magnet for possibility. Faith ain't just for the mountaintops, it's for the valleys. It's for the waiting rooms. It's for the silence, the delays, the not. And if you can learn to trust even there, even when it's tough, even when it doesn't make sense, there's nothing you won't overcome. Because faith, real faith, isn't just something you talk about. It's something you live, something you carry. Something that shows up not only in what you say, but in how you walk, how you rise, how you fight. And that's how you win.